get analysis on this with Jan Pospisil in London. He's an East Africa Affairs analyst. So Jan, the Chadian government presenting these elections as the final stage in the transition to democracy. But if more than 10 of the opposition parties refuse to take part and there was low voter turnout, will the results really be representative of the electorate?
I would be very optimistic to say that these elections are really a transition to democracy. The problem started, in essence, when the current president, now Mohamed Dabi, decided to run in the first place. Because when he took over the rule from his father, still in the way as a military dictator, he promised initially, for the sake of a democratic transition, to not run for these elections. Then he ran. And during his campaign, basically, his main opposition candidate was killed by security forces. So even the presidential elections in May were not really democratic. So these elections now are prolonging the problem of the attempt of an autocratic regime to democratize themselves in a way for the international world. This doesn't mean that, especially at the local level, these elections are not to an extent democratic and have some implications on especially local governance. But in general, it's far-fetched to say that this is really paving the way for a democratic transition.
When you speak about prolonging the problems, Chad is one of Africa's poorest countries, and it faces several issues. Voters have said they want jobs, they want to feel safe in their country. Chad, of course, has the issue of militant groups like Boko Haram in the country and on the border. So how does the government, whoever is in charge, even begin to deal with these issues?
I mean, the challenges for Chad are really huge. You have also taken into account that there's about 1.5 million refugees in the country from basically all neighboring countries. Chad is surrounded by conflicts, be it Boko Haram in Nigeria, being the coups in Sahel, being Ka, be it Sudan, be it Libya. So the government is in itself in a very, very challenged position. Even a very functional government would be incredibly challenged. What the president now tries to do is to diversify his international alliances. He did it, interestingly, by basically throwing the French out. In November, he withdrew from the defense pact with the French and basically asked the French to leave the country. But he did so with the idea of fostering ties on the one hand with Russia, but also with the UAE, with the US. So he tries to diversify. And I think this strategy of diversifying regional support is what the government tries to do to keep more or less this fragile stability in check.
Is it working right now, diversifying, as you say, the support? The French are out, the Russians are in, the UAE is there, the US is there. Will this actually help? Is it helping right now?
I mean, it is in itself quite an achievement to even being able to speak with all these at the same time. Not many are at current in the position to speak with the US, the Russians and the UAE at the same time at current. We'll see how things change when the new president in the US takes over and how the team looks like that will deal with Central Africa in the broader sense and what they want to do in terms of anti-terrorism operations in the broader region. Chad has been one of the bases for US involvement in fighting Boko Haram, but also like other Islamist groups in the region. I think Chad is still looking for US support, also material and training support from the US armed forces. And we will see how the change in administration in the US will play into this requirement.
Do these elections have a major impact on any of Chad's neighbors or the region as a whole, particularly if we look at areas of West Africa where there have been military coups, where some have called for a transition to democracy, where those countries have also kicked out the French or are trying to move away from French influence?
I think these elections are not comparable with the presidential elections that have been held earlier this year and had also been actually run to like in a way give the current president the idea of being a democratic elected ruler. Here, I think this had indeed quite an impact on especially Sahel countries, Niger, which is a neighboring country, but also Burkina Faso and Mali. And there is quite a lot of talks between Chad and these countries to foster their ties. But I say like these elections will have more of an impact on local governments and are meant to stabilize the regime internally, which will be a challenge, especially given the widespread opposition like withdrawal from the electoral process.
Jan Pospisil, an East Africa analyst. Really great to get your take. Thank you very much.